EVs have been praised in the last few years of being like the savior of transportation. Sure, they have fewer emissions than a gasoline or diesel-powered car. And by now I'm sure we're all familiar with nuance in general, but also the nuance around EVs. And we can hopefully all understand that just because something is eco-friendly to use doesn't mean it's eco-friendly to create. I'm not anti-EV. I think EVs have a place. I just think we need to be more responsible with how we're creating them, mining for them, etc. Using recycled and recyclable materials, and focusing on creating charging stations that use green energy. EVs are a step in the right direction, but we have a long way to go to make them truly eco-friendly. Let's dive into that today. Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all sorts of things zero waste, focusing on free, easy, and fun ways to live low waste. They might not be the most trendy topics, but I think these are some of the most important topics. So first, creating an EV. How's an EV made? EVs are mostly made from aluminum, magnesium, and plastic. At least the body of the car is. And I couldn't find a solid source on this, but they're most likely using new materials and not recycled materials. Meaning mining all of these metals, plastics, and minerals are being mined from new using probably not renewable energy to mine them. And the whole mining process is just very harmful to the planet and the people who are doing it. And then I see this argument a lot, like if the gasoline-powered cars are mining this way, why is it so bad that EVs are mining this way? The point is that nobody should be mining this way because this type of mining is really, really bad. So looking at this part of a vehicle from an environmental standpoint, it's not good, whether it's a gas-powered vehicle or an electronic vehicle. So until all manufacturers for these car parts get on board and start mining more responsibly, we can't really knock EVs for this. But what we can knock EVs for is their really, really environmentally intense battery. This part of an EV is truly not good for the environment. Well, maybe one small bit. They are manufacturing them with recyclability in mind, and I think that's really, really important to start EVs from the get-go with recyclability in mind and not create them as wasteful as possible and then slowly make them more eco-friendly. They're on this end of the spectrum, sure, but they're not nearly as bad as they could be. But again, they have a long way to go. But even with how environmentally intense it is to create a battery for an EV, let's look at this chart from the EPA. Factoring in the total life cycle of an EV versus a total life cycle of a gasoline or diesel powered vehicle, an EV still wins after all of this harm it creates making the battery. While the EV still wins in terms of eco-friendliness, lifetime at least, we still need to talk about the major impact of EVs, especially when it comes to the battery, and that is human lives. And that's not even an exaggeration. It's true. People are dying so that we can have EVs and other tech. The main culprit here is cobalt and coltan. Cobalt is necessary, for now, for EVs, among other batteries like phones, laptops, and more. The leading producer of cobalt and coltan and other precious metals is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, indigenously known as Goma. They produce around 70% of the world's cobalt. An International Monetary Fund report notes that a typical EV battery needs 8 kilograms, 18 pounds of lithium. That's crazy. But wait, there's more. Also 35 kilograms of manganese and 6 to 12 kilograms of cobalt. Again, per battery. But of course, cobalt is used in so much of our tech. So especially with the demand for countries to go green in terms of transportation, it's expected that the demand for cobalt will increase 4 times in the next 5 years. Among cobalt, copper and uranium, a known carcinogen, are also found in these Congolese mines. Around 30% of the mines in Congo are known as artisanal mines. These are the mines that are unregulated, where folks work for little pay in harsh conditions. They don't get personal protective equipment, there are frequent cave-ins, and literally they dig by hand. And they often have to start working as young as 10 to help make their family enough money. On top of all of this, these toxic mines are right in their communities, so they can't even escape the harm and pollution after hours. In fact, it's so common that when cobalt is found near a home in someone's backyard, the entire town will just be wiped off the map so that somebody can make a profit. Or if they are allowed to stay there and live there, they are now subject to mining 24/7, pollutants 24/7, and it's literally right in their backyard. They can't escape it. And this is their home. It might be their family home, something that they inherited. Now, the main concern here is, especially because they rarely get PPE, is the cobalt and uranium dust, both of which are known carcinogens. And when pregnant people are inhaling this, the babies might have birth defects. And when children are starting to work in these mines as young as 10 years old, they are exposed to this basically their entire lives. If you want to learn more about this topic in full, I highly recommend Cobalt Red: How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddharth Kara. It goes heavily in depth about this topic in much better detail than I could, and how our addiction to buying piece of new tech after piece of new tech is literally killing people. There are some other very prominent Congolese activists on TikTok and other social media that you can check out, learn from, and even donate to, and they will all be linked down below. I know that was very heavy, but it's very important to talk about and understand that as we transition to greener futures in the West, in the global North, people in the global South are suffering not only from climate change, they are suffering the brunt of climate change in terms of heat waves, flooding, droughts, lack of food and water. They're also suffering because we're relying on them to create our our green tech. And as we prioritize things like EVs instead of other climate solutions, these people are just becoming more and more susceptible to this harm, as well as climate change as a whole. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later too. EVs are not the savior for climate change. They're not. But anyway, let's move on to charging an EV. Does charging an EV actually outweigh the cost of filling up and fueling a gasoline-powered car, especially if you're charging that EV with coal or gas? And this is a very, very common argument I see all the time, especially on Facebook, like, haha, how funny, they're charging their EVs with oil. It's not actually good for the planet. But is it? Is it actually bad this way? The Union of Concerned Scientists found that for the majority of EVs in the US, charging an EV is the equivalent of driving a gas car that gets 50 miles to the gallon. So yes, it still pollutes, especially as we do have hybrids and even non-hybrids that get 40 plus miles to the gallon. They're almost equal when you're charging them with coal or oil or gas. But for instance, if we were to switch to an EV right now, even charging with coal or gas or oil, then driving our truck, because our truck only gets 20 miles to the gallon. So it is very dependent on your situation and each person. But again, the average car in the US only gets 25 miles to the gallon, so even charging an EV, pollutive energy, it's still 2 times better, charging wise. This isn't the full life cycle. Now, of course, in areas of the country where green energy is prominent, like New York and California, for example, charging an EV with green energy is the equivalent to driving a gas-powered car that gets 100 miles to the gallon. So over 4 times better to charge your EV with green energy than it is to drive a gas-powered car, and 2 times better to charge your EV, with not green energy than it is to drive a gasoline powered car. And if you're still unsure about green energy, I have a full video up here that I talk about all the green energy myths and how I bust them all. I know Forbes isn't like a scientific source, but they had a really good argument. And that is that the demand for EVs is still quite new and the grid is still really new. An EV might not be the most eco-friendly thing right now, but it's gonna get more eco-friendly as green energy gets more popular and we can start charging more and more EVs with solar and wind and other forms of green energy. So are EVs the future? I'm sure everyone has their own opinion here, but mine, I think EVs have their place, but I don't think we should be putting them on a pedestal as we have in the last couple years. Are they better than a gas and diesel powered car? Yes. Are they better than a hybrid? Unsure. Are they better than trains and public transportation? Absolutely not. And of course, there's nuance there too, because like buses typically run off of natural gas, which is better than diesel and gasoline. But is a natural gas powered bus full of 50 people better than one person driving an EV that's charging off of green energy? No, there's so much nuance here. But at the end of the day, like high-speed electric rail, say less. Honestly, any form of transportation that gets fewer cars off the road, even if they are EVs, which they're not really right now. But I think EVs also have their place, especially as we transition to greener energy in the form of solar and wind, because we will run out of oil one day. Maybe not now, maybe not even in my lifetime, but one day we will, because we're using it at far too quick of a pace to keep up with how long it's taking to create. So I think it's a good idea to switch to electric for, our own benefit, for the planet, as well as so we don't run out of oil, but not at this cost, not at this cost of human lives. Maybe we don't need to find ways. I think the ways already exist, but companies need to implement recycled materials in their products, even down to our phones, and all the way up through EVs. We need to not only use recycled materials in our devices, but also design with recyclability and repairability in mind. Because take an iPhone. How easy is it to get an iPhone repaired? Not. It's so difficult to get an iPhone repaired. Even my screen. I cracked my screen in October. We ran over it with the RV. Oops. Granted, I was in the middle of nowhere. I was in Jackson Hole. But even then, not only finding an Apple refurbisher, but also finding a second-hand, a third-party refurbisher to redo my screen was still so difficult. And that's just the screen, let alone the battery, the hardware, whatever else is in here. It's so difficult to repair. But then also thinking about like Dan's laptop. His laptop is part my old laptop, part his laptop. He took it apart himself and he redid it all. A lot of tech is still easily repairable yourself or via the manufacturer. But even then, it all comes down to right to repair. If you've never heard of right to repair laws, it essentially means that any sort of tech, any sort of machinery, I think it was John Deere, it was some big tractor company a couple years ago, taking away the right to repair from people. Doing stuff like planned obsolescence, like iPhones. Doing stuff like putting your manuals behind a paywall so that people have to pay to repair your items. Or making your computer systems in your vehicles so difficult to repair that you have to take it to a repair shop. Which sure, it can still get repaired, but the hoops that you have to jump through to get stuff repaired when it's much cheaper because of all these paywalls and hoops that you have to jump through to just buy a new piece of tech, it's just not practical for people to repair tech. And it all comes down to capitalism and greed, right? Because how are these companies going to make a profit if they're products are recyclable and repairable. If my iPhone was easy to repair and I could keep it for up to 10 years instead of like I've only had it for 3 years and it's like slowly dying. It's doing pretty good for 3 years old though, which is sad. Phones should last much longer than that. It's so much easier for them to make a profit this way. And as I already hinted at earlier, just like with everything that revolves around climate change, there is no one solution. EVs are not the solution. Are they a solution? Sure. But should we also focus on public transportation? Yes. Should we also focus on walkable and bikeable communities? Yes. I think EVs are a great step in the right direction, especially in countries like the United States where we are very, very car-centric. Our neighborhoods, our cities, our towns, our entire country revolves around cars. And if you want to know why that is, you can check out this video, A Conspiracy Where Big Oil and Big Tire Ruined Public Transportation 100 years ago. But again, I think EVs have their place. We just need to be much more mindful about how we're creating them, how we're disposing of them, and how we're mining for them. Best thing that you can do for the environment, for your own wallet, and for the people of the Congo is to buy your tech secondhand. All the way from your smallest piece of tech like your AirPods up to your phone, your laptop, and your EV. Buy tech secondhand. If you still want to support green energy, if you still want the latest iPhone, do it secondhand, refurbished. As much as possible, do not buy tech new. This is the best way that we can tell these companies that we don't support what they're doing in the Congo, don't support what they're doing to the environment, and we don't support that they are not recycling or refurbishing their own devices. This is the most practical way that we can still be involved in this tech-centric society without having to contribute our dollars directly to what they're doing with them. You can still enjoy your tech and still get the most use out of your tech as possible without compromising the people, the planet, and your wallet. It's cheaper to buy stuff secondhand anyway. And if you want to learn more about how you can find tech secondhand without getting scammed, because I know it can be kind of scary buying big expensive stuff like this secondhand, you can check out this video for more tips. So what do you think? Are EVs as good as you thought? Are they worse than you thought? Are you gonna buy an EV in the future? If you enjoyed this topic and want to learn more about transportation, I have videos on the following topics such as self-charging roads, the Uber of flying, yes, you heard that right, how to avoid supporting big oil even if you can't give up your car, and again, check out that video about that public transportation conspiracy, it's a fun one. And once again, please continue to educate yourself about the Congo. I cannot recommend that book enough, Cobalt Red. It's so good, it's so educational, and it will really make you never want to buy a new piece of tech again, which we shouldn't, for the environment and for the people. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I really appreciate your time watching this full video and also just watching this video in general. These video topics don't typically get as many views, which I'm not really concerned about, you know, money-wise or view-wise. I'm concerned about this because this topic is so important. I want everyone to know about it. I would much rather get, you know, the amount of views that I get on other videos, on this video, and other similar topics, because this stuff is so important. But people just want to watch the trendy stuff, and I get it. I'm a consumer of content as well. It's more fun to watch stuff that's trendy and entertaining and, you know, talking about swaps that save you money or whatever, but this stuff is more important and we all need to be learning about this. So if you learned anything helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share this video with others. And just remember that it matters so much where you spend your money. Your small actions truly matter. Voting with your dollar truly matters. And when in doubt, shop secondhand. I will see you in the next video, but until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye guys. Oh my gosh, there's a snake out there. I cannot believe I saw that because that's the size of the door. I saw the back half of it, and thankfully I did because Mochi was out there, and she would have eaten it. She would have tried. But it's not. She's on edge about it, though. She did see it, and it spooked her. Anyway.